Welcome to episode 22 of the Family Podcast Network, helping you work with your tough kids and even those that aren't. Coming at you from Tuscola, Texas. That's the home and headquarters of the Family Podcast Network. I'm your host, Trey Gibson. Today's topic is going to be kind of fun. We're going to talk a little bit about what did I mean when I said technique. What does technique mean? In a previous podcast or an episode called Carpe Diem Parenting, yes, I think so, I made a statement there that I think offended a lot of people. Was never the intention for it. But the comment that I made in it was that if you're struggling and having difficulties with parenting, it's not that all parenting sucks. It is that sometimes your parenting techniques need to be improved and honed upon. We used the idea of a golf swing. If I have a crappy golf swing, that doesn't mean that all golf sucks. It just means my golf swing's bad and needs to be worked on, right? And so I think a lot of people got offended at that. Never the intention. Now, I never created Family Podcast Network to be non-confrontational. As a matter of fact, I designed it because I need it to be confrontational because a lot of parents have bunkered themselves in their ways and then want to blame somebody else, sometimes and mainly and often their kids, for the way that they feel, when in reality it's just that their techniques just need to be worked on and honed a little bit, and that is an easy project. So created that podcast, and I watched a lot of people get upset. I also saw it be the most controversial, the most watched, as well as the most retweeted and liked on Facebook. So I think it's connecting with people. But I wanted to go and break that down and clarify just a little bit more. What do I mean when I say techniques? We're going to do that today. Before we get into that, let's do a little bit of the housekeeping, guys. Consider sharing this on Facebook and Twitter. Share this with your friends on there. I've made it really easy. If you'll notice this browser bar up top, you can share this with just about anything from Stumble Upon to Facebook to retweeting it through Twitter. Made that super easy for you. Also, if you'll notice over here in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see that I've also added the ability to log in with Facebook, Google. You can log in with PayPal if you want. You can log in through LinkedIn, just a whole host of different social sites. I get it. I don't like linking in and having to register all my crap through, somebody else's registry stuff. So this way, all you got to do is just jump in there, log in with Facebook, boom. You're in it as long as you're already logged into Facebook on your browser. Make that much easier. Guys, also consider signing up for the FPN newsletter. That'll allow you to get updates on whenever I send out new material, so you're not having to come check the site all the time, and you can always see whenever we're putting a new podcast out there. Also consider connecting with Family Podcast Network through Facebook, Twitter. Also the RSS that I have up there, you can subscribe to the feed. I set that up through FeedBurner for you guys, as well as get onto our FPN blog and our forum. Feel free to go check those out, guys. Also, you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner over here, I've got an affiliate link for HostGator.com. I host my site through HostGator.com. It's a Texas-based website. I love these guys. They have treated me so well since I've got on here. They've been patient with me to answer questions. When I have plugins that were screwing up my entire site, I was able to call them at midnight, and they had an American base with no accent get on and be able to help me out, which made it easier for me to understand them. They were available 24 hours a day, including a chat function one time whenever I didn't have cell reception and I had internet connection. So if you're going to do that, jump down there, go to the HostGator link down there, click through if you're going to start a website. Use them. They are excellent. I admit to you guys, I get a percentage of money if you guys click through that, but let me tell you, I'm not recommending that for the money. I will never, ever put anything on Family Podcast Network that I don't absolutely believe in 100% myself and wouldn't recommend it to my grandma or my family. And let me tell you, I've already recommended it to my family because it is that good. Also consider becoming a member or also becoming what's called a PTAC on Family Podcast Network. PTAC stands for Parents for the Ethical Treatment of Adolescents and Kids. That is just to inject a little bit of humor into becoming a membership with us. But consider becoming a PTACer. Again, that is that is the Parents for the Ethical Treatment of Adolescents and Kids. That is what a membership version it is on here. It offers month-by-month payments, one yearly payment, which will save about 13% if you do it that way, or also just a donation. If you can only do less than that, go ahead. I'll still make you a member. If you can do more than that, whatever it is you guys feel led to do with those types of things, it helps support us. Again, that helps us build and grow FPN to offer you guys more services in the long run. So the bottom line, if you feel like you're getting 20 cents, if you feel like you're getting 2 dimes, or a little bit less than 2 dimes in reality, if you feel like you're getting about 2 dimes worth of help from Family Podcast Network, consider becoming a member. It helps us grow and being supporting as a PTAG. Also, guys, consider signing up for the FPN newsletter. That allows me to send you out an email every time that I put new content on the website, and allows you to access it, click through, and get to these individual podcasts as we go. So, with no further ado, let's go ahead and get on to our topic today, guys. Let's clarify on technique. What am I saying when I say, when many parents are having a hard time with their kids, it isn't an issue that parenting sucks, but it is an issue that their technique isn't honed. What am I saying when I say that? It all goes like this. I've used an example in another episode about a golf swing, right? I play, or have played, I don't play anymore. I have played golf in the past. I did horribly because I got no training, and as such, my golf swing was miserable. Because of that, I could say, well, golf sucks because of my golf swing, when in reality, it's not the actual, the practice of playing golf that sucks. It's that my technique is not good. It hasn't been honed. It hasn't been trained. I may know the basics, right? I may know how to basically kind of hold on to a club and to swing it back, but I may not know to keep my arms straight and locked out, right? I may not know that. I may not know to not drop my rear shoulder as I'm coming through in a swing. I may not know those things. And so while it may imitate a good swing, that doesn't mean that my technique is correct. And parenting, when I say that same thing with parenting, it's the same concept. Many parents have watched their parents grow up doing different kinds of parenting strategies, right? So they've seen the basic swing of parenting, if you will, sticking with the analogy. But what happens is, in a golf swing, if you've got the perfect swing, but you drop that shoulder as you're swinging through, you're probably going to nail and dig into that dirt and put a giant friggin' dent or a divot into the green whenever you swing that, or the fairway when you swing that club. Parenting can be the same way. If you've got everything down, but you're not consistent in what you're doing, let's say you have the absolute best discipline techniques in the world, but you don't be consistent with them. Then you might look at it and say, this sucks, man. Parenting blows. I'm practicing all these things the way it's supposed to, and it's not working. Well, it's not an issue that your discipline techniques might not be working. It might just be something as simple as not being consistent with the discipline that you're setting up. So when I say technique, that is not saying you're a bad parent. And it is especially not saying that you don't love your kids. I'll promise you this. If you're watching this episode right now, I'll make a promise. You love your kids. You wouldn't spend anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes with me a podcast if you weren't ready and loving your kids as hardcore as you could. And I know that. But the issue may be is that the technique's wrong. We all do it. Guys, this is my profession, and I study it, and I love it. I've gone to school for it. I've practiced it, and I've watched amazing results with my kids. And guess what? I occasionally have bad techniques with my kids, too. And yet we seem to be so ashamed to admit that. It's like if we admit that, it's like we're admitting to the White House scandal or something. We suck it up sometimes, guys. Me too. Me too. It is a part of the human condition that we don't get things right. And so when I say technique, I'm not trying to criticize you and how much you love and care about your kids. I know for a fact that you love and care about your kids, again, because you're here. But the issue is we've got to hone your technique a little bit. We've got to work on it. We've got to grow. We've got to build up to some of these things, right? So again, I think some people got really defensive whenever I said what I said about that article on the Carpe Diem Parenting. If you haven't got a chance, I'll make sure that I put a show note link in here to go back to the Carpe Diem article. We've got a huge following on that now. Lots of people have gotten on to listen, to watch, retweet, and like that, and recommend it over on Facebook. I think that's excellent. So if you haven't heard Carpe Diem, yes, I think so, go check it out. It'll be in the show notes today, here at the bottom of this post. But a lot of people, I think, got really defensive. I mean, I actually watched people unfriend Family Podcast Network on Facebook after that post. And I think what happens is people say, oh, Trey's calling me a bad parent. No. Maybe. I might be. But hear my qualifiers out before we get into that. Whenever I say that I'm criticizing the technique, that's the easy stuff to fix. That's the easy stuff to fix. The question that I get from parents, or have received from parents, on many occasions has been this question right here. Trey, am I a crappy parent? Am I a crappy parent? And that seems, I mean, that's kind of a hard question in some ways, but really it's not. I have learned a long time ago 2 things very definitively in doing this parenting stuff. Number 1, crappy parenting is not defined by the amount of successes versus failures that we have had in our lives. I'm going to say that again. Crappy parenting is not defined by how many times you've gotten it right or how many times you've gotten it wrong. If that was what we had to determine crappy or good parenting off of, we're all screwed. We're all going to fail. We are all going to mess it up. And that is just a fact of the matter. Even folks who study it for a living, this is what I study for a living. I read journals about parenting and family stuff for recreation because I love it. Because I love it, because I love getting better at it. And you know what? I still walk out and I make practices and decisions just this very day that I look back on as a parent and go, crap, that was not that big a deal. Why did I get so bent out of shape about that? I shouldn't have, right? That is just the nature of the business when it comes to parenting. So again, crappy parenting is not defined by the number of successes or failures. It is defined by what does our technique look like. And even then, I think we get into a mess up of this. We have been trained by some very well-intended but short-sighted individuals that failure is bad. Right? Grandma always said it, right? She goes, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Now, don't hear me tearing down the idea of doing things and getting them right. Because I believe in doing things excellently. I believe in doing things wonderfully. I believe doing things to the absolute best of our capability. I believe that good is the #1 worst enemy of doing things excellently. So don't hear me saying that I'm disagreeing with the principle behind this when they say it. However, I think that has been twisted to say that failure is not acceptable. When in reality, failures are the things that seem to teach humans the best when we will accept and admit that we are doing them and choose to make a change. When we're willing to accept the fact that, man, I'm totally screwing my golf swing up. I need help. I go, I get training. That's where I learned that. You lock your arm out all the way back to the swing. You keep your body relaxed. You rotate your body through. You don't drop that rear shoulder as you're coming through, and you bring them across nice and smooth. When you realize that things aren't the way they need to be, you go and you get them fixed, and boom, changes happen. One of my favorite buddies is just a whiz-bang genius guy in multiple levels. But you know what I love about him is? He is like a sponge whenever you start talking to him about something. He is not prideful. He just sits there and he just gobbles up everything you tell him. And I love that about him. And I think that's why he's so dadgum genius. It's not because he's got a bigger cranium or better neurological activity than anybody else. I just think the guy's learned how to put his pride aside and say, you know what, I'm willing to learn whatever I need to learn because I'm not the expert in this and I've still got things to learn in it. That's something that even I wrestle with sometimes, right? We are told that failures are a bad thing, but in reality, it is failures that can teach us the most about success. I think there was a quote that was popularized, particularly here with this National Treasure movie with Nicolas Cage recently. But he makes a comment in there. It says when I think it was Thomas Edison, I believe. So when Thomas Edison was asked about all of the screw-ups that he had about making the cotton filament light bulb, apparently he failed like at it 2,500 times. He said, his response, no, I just found 2,500 different ways not to do it. And in reality, I get to see that all the time, even with my kids. The other day, my daughter sat down to tie her shoe. And she's still in that learning phase of it and whatnot. And she sat down. I remember the first time she did it. She sat down to do it. And she just kind of started twisting things around. And by a miracle of God, I guess, the little girl got it right. And I remember thinking, I'm not exceptionally excited about this. Because I said, what's going to happen next time? But I thought, maybe she got it. Well, guess what happened? Later that day, we took the shoes off. The shoes went back on. And guess what happened? She was so excited to put her shoes on, but when she sat down and started trying to do it, guess what? She couldn't repeat the results. The reason for that was the first time that it happened, didn't actually teach her how to do it right. She just kind of got lucky, if you will. So she sat there and she messed up and she messed up and she messed up that next time around. And she failed and she failed and she failed. Of course, as a parent, you hate seeing that. You never want your kid to fail. But I let her do it, and guess what happened? She figured it out. And you could see the moment. Boom! I mean, just it literally, it's like a manifestation of the light bulb went off over her head as she realized what she'd been doing wrong that whole time. And she started over, and she did it like that. And I've seen her tie her shoe over and over and over from that point on. All because she had the ability to fail. She learned all the ways that it didn't work, and now she can successfully do it the way it works because she has clearly cut that out. So crappy parenting is not based off of success and failures. Crappy parenting is based solely off of this. It is contingent on how quickly and efficiently do we acknowledge that we're messing up and make changes. That's what makes a good parent versus a crappy parent. The good parent says, what I'm doing isn't working. What I'm trying isn't helping. This technique isn't making a difference. This technique is driving me bonkers. If you're going bonkers, if your kid's doing something that is driving you nuts consistently, so we're not talking about just a rough day or a rough week or a rough patch of weeks or a rough last month or 6 months. If it's happening consistently over and over and over and over and you cannot get it to stop, more than likely, it's just an issue that your technique is bad. A good parent will stop and look at that and say, you know, there's a better way than this. I know there is. I know I'm not getting this right. I know that my kids are acting a fool today because I'm in a rotten mood when I got home. I have to do that all the time. So, Corey, have the kids been like this? My wife's name's Corey. Corey, have the kids been like this all day? No, not really. And I have to acknowledge they were like this when I got home. And you know what? I had a crappy day, and I'm bringing my bad attitude home. And kids feed off of how Daddy acts when he gets home. I'll guarantee you they do it to you as well. So we have to acknowledge those things. So it is contingent on how quickly do we make changes to our technique whenever they are not working. Good parents look at, or we'll say non-crappy parents look at when things aren't going the way they want and say, this isn't the way I want it to be. What am I doing? How can I affect change in this? They say, well, Shrey, don't kids just come home with bad attitudes? Sometimes. But in most cases, two things are happening. One, we're teaching them to act that way. Or two, we're not teaching them not to act that way. Those are the two primary things I see with pesky behaviors. And we're going to do a podcast over that eventually, over pesky behaviors. But for the point for today, we're talking about technique is this. It's just visiting about these ideas here. So if you hear me say, let's work on your technique is not where we're trying to be. I know you love your kid. But step up to the plate. Be a good parent. And look at that technique and figure out how you can change it. I'm not saying that you'll get that right every time. I don't. I know I need to make changes to my technique sometime, and then I still go and I go and do that stuff anyway. I know that my technique as a parent in terms of food and modeling how to eat food for my kids is screwed up. But you know what? I walk into it day by day and I screw up on it. So I'm not saying that you're a horrible parent if you're practicing things and then not making those changes. But you need to be acknowledging that a change needs to be made, and you need to be looking for solutions to it. That's what I mean when I say technique. Let me clarify one more point. One of the ladies who came and commented over here, thank you so much to Kelly for coming over here and hitting on this point. One of the things she said was I'm hesitant to say that just because you're overwhelmed, that it's because of technique, and I totally agree with that. Sometimes we're just overwhelmed because we've got a lot of stuff going on in life. And that doesn't necessarily mean technique. I think it's arguable in saying that maybe our technique for coping is not working well. Maybe your coping is golf swinging and you haven't been going golfing lately because you don't have the money to do it, right? Even there is an element of technique, and I think those go together. But she also shared another great point. I'm going to see if I can get her on here for a podcast one of these days on one of these episodes to talk a little bit about perspective. She mentioned it's also a lot about where is your mindset, where's your attitude, your way of looking at life and things and how you're interpreting it, right? So hopefully we'll get on to talk a little bit about that. So let's wrap it up on this. My call to all parents is not to stop screwing up. That is not my call here, because I think the minute you hear something like that, you get defensive. Oh, well, you're trolling, blah, 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 you know? That is not the purpose in this. My purpose is not to say stop screwing up. We're going to do it. And I'll guarantee it, you can listen to every podcast in the world and you'll still make decisions. The purpose is let's admit to those. First off, we've got to admit that this technique is not working. These series of actions that I'm performing is just not helping. We've got to get to a point where we can admit that. And then second off, we've got to make change. We've got to get to a point where we can make changes in our lives. It's possible, guys. I cannot tell you, again, I've iterated this before, so I'm going to reiterate it now. And no, I do not know if iterate's a word, but I just made that up if I did. We're going to roll with it. But I was not good with kids when I first got here. When I first started having kids, I was really bad at them. As a matter of fact, I was uncomfortable with them. I was nervous, and I treated them like they were like atomic bombs, and if I dropped them, everybody would die. But I began to learn, train, admit to where I was going wrong, working on my things, and making changes. I've always known I have an issue with raising my voice. I've got a loud voice. My wife gets on him, Trey, you're yelling again. And I'll get my voice to going, and I'm sitting there just barking at the kids. Corey will say, like, Trey, you're doing it right. But the issue is admitting I'm not getting this right. Me shouting and balking and hollering at the kids, it's not getting him to clean that room up any faster. So we've got to find a new technique. Something we practiced today was Daddy came and helped him, and I raced him to see who could get the most toys into the toy bin as fast as possible. And guess what happened? Not only did we have a really good time, I didn't have to yell, and that room got done in blazing. We're talking like if these kids would have had flux capacitors in them, they'd have gone back in time, because I guarantee you they crested 88 miles an hour while they were trying to pick up those toys to beat Daddy. Good parents stop and say, is this technique working? No, it's not. What can I do different? What can I do different? The quicker that we can say this, the quicker that we can admit to these things, the quicker that we can look at it like any other thing that we would do and say, you know what, this ain't right. The quicker we can get it to a closer point to where we don't want to pull our hair out and we're not ready to punch our kids in the face. Metaphorically speaking, don't punch your kids in the face, okay? Piece of advice there. Bank in on that one. But anyway, be chewing on that today and this week. What in your technique needs to be changed? Take a look back and see if we've got a podcast that's on here that fits that. If we don't have one, contact me. I've got a contact me up here in the upper part of this browser part up here. You can click on it and send me any message you want. Or you can directly email me at TreyGibson@thefamilypodcastnetwork.com. You can email me any questions that go straight to my my smartphone, my iPhone, and I'll get that anywhere you're at, and I can respond to that at almost any place, at any time, anywhere, and I will get back to you on that as soon as possible. So, again, guys, I want to say thank you for joining me for another episode of the Family Podcast Network. Consider sharing this episode on Facebook and Twitter, as well as any of the other social networks, LinkedIn, etc. You may put those on there. Consider signing up for the site. It is completely free. Consider becoming a PTAC member as well. And then also consider signing up for the newsletter, which will get you emails specifically to that. Also check out our blog and our forum. Guys, that is all for today. Remember, as always, it is all about the relationships. So guys, have a good week, have a good day, and we will see you at the next episode.